Hi, welcome to Wednesday. Welcome, it's Penn and CJ, a midweek podcast, and if you watched the last episode, you may notice that my audio sounds a little more distant, but CJ here is going to sound a lot better, and that's because we're back in our hometown together recording the second episode, which is very exciting.
Here's to an improvised spring break, and I definitely advise taking a little bit of time to relax for anyone else whose university or school decided to cancel or postpone their spring break because of the fact that mental health is important and it really helps. That's not to say you should slack off. I don't advise that, but just take some time, make sure you stay in the right place with your mind so you don't start tripping up academically.
Yeah, um, for sure. Or if you're like me, you'll just not do it anyways, and the entire semester is a spring break until the last second, and then you panic, and but then it's out of the way. I'm a master procrastinator. um, and CJ can't stand that. I don't know if we discussed this on the last episode or on the first episode that we had to scrap, but I took a quiz the 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 prior evening, and I was on call with CJ while doing it because I don't care. And I aced it despite having read none of the content.
It hurt on a deeper academic level, but I mean, it worked out as well, so what are we gonna do, huh?
I mean, the joys of being a communications major is being able to understand how everything communicates, including quizzes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a good test taker. I'm not a good studier or a student in general though. Um, how's your improvised spring break been so far?
Pretty good. A lot of time relaxing especially over the weekend. Yeah, it's just the weather's been nice for it too, which has been good. Especially driving back for winter break, the extended winter break. Trying to get back up, we drove into a rainstorm, which I don't know if you've ever driven around rush hour traffic around Indianapolis during a rainstorm. It's not fun, and I don't recommend it.
Wow.
But yeah,
Well, at least you got a little bit of excitement.
there is that.
Another thing I want to note, if you watched the last episode and you're watching this one, you may notice that there's no Discord feed because obviously we're just recording in the same room. There's no point for the Discord feed. So instead, we have a lovely little clip art thing that I threw together that you probably already saw in the thumbnail. So that's just going to be in its place. So you can enjoy slug go-karting with money exhaust. In our well, actually, I wanted to talk about this because I'm a little frustrated about it. As CJ knows, I cut my finger open last Thursday and had to get several stitches, seven in my left index finger. And with that came a tetanus shot. Today, I was scheduled for my first dose of the Pfizer vaccine. I get to where I'm going. I walk in and they start asking me the questions. Have you had COVID? Have you shown any symptoms? Have you been tested lately? No, no, no. I've never had a COVID test. He's been tested. CJ's been tested religiously though.
Okay, so yeah, my university's policy became any student living on campus was tested twice a week, which I'm for mitigation testing, but considering it was a randomized once a week first semester during like the primary time for COVID to be infecting people because it was also flu season, it was a change that I think was A, to boost the numbers, show they're doing something, which is a double-edged sword. It's good for universities to be doing stuff, but at the same time, if you're doing it purely for the numbers, it becomes less humanized. Plus, because of the isolated situations on campus, the only time I'm interacting with people is when I'm being tested for the virus. So it's an added risk for me. But last semester I got tested 18 times. I don't know how many this semester. I stopped counting.
Well, that's lovely. But yeah, so I get there. No, I haven't had COVID. No, I haven't shown any symptoms. No, I haven't been tested. Then the kicker. Have you had any other vaccines in the last 14 days? Yeah, so that tetanus shot was less than 10 days ago as of recording this. So I get there, I rush there because I left late because I may or may not have been playing Stardew Valley. And I look over the clock. I always do that to myself. I'll look over at the clock right when I should be leaving for something or a little after. Like I have a
Mm-hmm.
3 o'clock class and sometimes I'll take a break to play a game or something and I'll look at the clock at 2:25. Now I'm roughly a 25-30 minute drive away from campus. So so I just hop up and leave at that point. Um, so yeah, but so I had to reschedule my first dose of the Pfizer vaccine, and I was very upset about that because honestly, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I'm happy to get vaccinated. I want to be vaccinated, but more than doing it for myself, I was doing it for my girlfriend, who has been very cautious about this whole pandemic, as she should. But she's gotten some backlash from her family, who is, and this is going to sound rude, and I apologize, but it is true, more religious than scientific, in which they don't necessarily believe in the concept of, you know, precautions, because, if you're gonna die, you're gonna die, as some of her family members have said. Which, and I know that's not all religious people's. If it were, this would be a lot worse than it is, uh, infection wise. But yeah, I was trying to get that done mostly for her so she could stop worrying. She's vaccinated. Her parents are vaccinated. She did all of the scheduling for her family for their vaccines. That's how like cautious and enthusiastic she's been about the ability to get vaccinated. And
Mm-hmm.
so she helped schedule this one for me today on the day of recording this, the 13th, and I couldn't get it, and I was kind of frustrated about that.
Yeah. If we want to stay on the topic of vaccines as well, um, caution is not entirely unadvised, as with anything, but bear in mind, be educated about the vaccines you're going to get because if you want to go over to the Reuters article,
Oh, sure, we can
just
hop into that. CJ had an article he wanted to talk about,
yeah,
from Reuters.
this
U.S.
is
pauses use of Johnson and Johnson COVID-19 vaccine over rare blood clots rollout delayed in Europe. I had seen a little bit about the blood clots, but not a lot.
right.
So if you want to get into this,
All right, this is I skimmed the article, but this is building up over a large argument. For me, the major arguments I've been hearing are less religiously based and more upon this idea of the rare blood clots because it's like a 1 in 1 million chance of having a serious blood clot, but that's also running numbers. You don't want to be that millionth person,
right?
but
There's
this
a little bit more than 1 million people in Europe.
right, yeah, and so what the article basically overviewed the fact that the United States has put a pause on the production of the Johnson and Johnson vaccine for the United States because of the
Oh,
rare blood
I
clots.
said Europe.
Well,
Oh,
you're
rollout
delayed
delayed
in
in Europe.
Europe,
That's
yeah.
where I got that from.
Yeah, so
Okay.
basically, Europe and the United States have both taken a very much more cautionary approach towards Johnson and Johnson, which I think is important in and of itself because the United States has been pushing the vaccine because both the U.S. and Europe have been pushing the vaccines because they need to vaccinate their population. Well, all of a sudden, they're hitting the brakes on Johnson and Johnson because that's my issue with both that Johnson and AstraZeneca being that those two they both affect a different area of cells of blood cells than the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, which is why I'm more in support of Pfizer and Moderna. But long story short, the doctors interviewed in this, or at least the ones selected for this, were a bit biased in favor of vaccination, obviously. But they're saying, you don't necessarily need to cancel any pre-existing appointment you have for the Johnson and Johnson vaccine, because again, the odds are so low, and it's very unlikely. But at the same time, the United States is also, putting a pause on it, observing, just taking a more cautionary approach. And my big thing being, if there is that risk, if there is that, even, again, they're rare blood clots. You're very unlikely to get one if you take the Johnson and Johnson vaccine. But if you turn around and Pfizer's widely available, especially your university campuses, etc., for the younger generations. But if you have the opportunity to go for a vaccine that could possibly cause a blood clot or not, I would advise taking the more cautionary approach, not rushing in to get whatever the first vaccine that's available to you.
Yeah. Sorry if that buzz picked up on the mic, guys. I don't know why I decided to put my phone there. Anyways, so yeah, apparently the move comes after European regulators said earlier this month they had found a possible link between AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine and a similar rare blood clotting problem that led to a small number of deaths. Now, um, this is all to be expected if you really think about it. Um, not the hopefully you wouldn't expect to die from a vaccine. I'm not an anti-vaxxer, I already said that. But the fact is, vaccines are often studied and tested over the course of many, many, many years, and we've rolled this out after just over a year of this being a pandemic. So
Hmm.
the fact that there is some issues with the vaccines isn't surprising, um, but I can imagine that it's going to set back a lot of people's optimism and hope for
Hmm.
having this pandemic done with. And even once you're vaccinated, the pandemic isn't going to be done with. Once you're vaccinated, that does not mean you should go tear your mask off and go running down the street spitting in people's faces. Okay? I know it's fun, but don't. So Johnson & Johnson's single dose shot and AstraZeneca's low cost vaccine are seen as vital weapons in the fight against a pandemic that has claimed more than 3 million lives. Yet any vaccine is a vital weapon against the
Right.
pandemic, but the fact that AstraZeneca is cheaper than the Johnson & Johnson major evil corporation vaccine, um, it is appealing, you know? Um, it is appealing. In the United States, vaccines from Moderna and Pfizer, BioNTech, SE have accounted for the vast majority of vaccinations so far, as they should. I believe, as far as I understand, those have existed the longest.
Hmm.
Immunology experts echoed U.S. officials in understanding that the risk posed by the Johnson & Johnson vaccine appeared extremely low, and it remained a valuable tool against the risk of COVID-19. 6 cases with about 7 million doses is not something to panic about. Um, People are asking me if they should cancel their Johnson & Johnson vaccine appointments, and I've told them not to, but I know many will, and this will stall progress in controlling the pandemic. And to be fair, if you canceled it, nobody can really blame you, as long as you're still seeking to get vaccinated. If you
Hmm.
don't let yourself get put off from being vaccinated by a small setback in the vaccine. I know it has killed a few people so far. Blood clotting is not inherently deadly. It's not ideal. Nobody wants it. It wouldn't be great if you got it. But with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine and the AstraZeneca vaccine, you're probably just better off getting vaccinated. Um,
And plus, those aren't your only two options
right.
as well. Like I said at the beginning, be educated about what vaccine you're going to get. If you feel that you personally would be at greater risk, whether it be because of a pre-existing condition or maybe you just view yourself as an unlucky individual and you're like, I'll be one of those 1 million just because of, whatever exterior cause, that's fine. Go for Pfizer, go for Moderna, go for a vaccine that maybe takes longer, maybe more expensive. Bear in mind, they're not more expensive to you. That's more to the United States, and
Sure. Yeah.
which is again why it's appealing because we're trying to save money on the by and large, but just look for other options. Be educated about what vaccine you're going in to get. Don't let yourself be surprised or blindsided, and just be conscientious about it. But don't walk through it living in fear because that can be just as bad. Having such great anxiety could be just as bad for your mental health as the vaccine could plausibly be for your physical health.
All in all, get vaccinated and you'll be better off for it. And everybody around you will too. Okay, enough about the pandemic,
Yeah,
if you don't
moving on to
mind.
better topics.
I'd like to talk about a few articles. Actually, no, two articles that I found from the New York Times. First of which, are you confused by scientific jargon? So are scientists. Scientific papers containing lots of specialized terminology are less likely to be cited by other researchers. And then it immediately opens the article with 4 words that are scientific jargon: Polje, Nape, Vuggy, and Samite.
I can tell. I've seen nappe before. I have never. I couldn't tell you what any of those mean.
Well, that's what I want to do. I want you to try and guess because I have the Webster dictionaries. That's what these links are. They link to the Webster dictionary definition of these words. So let's start with Polje. Now, keep in mind this doesn't relate to like geology and cave science stuff like that.
Gotcha.
So, what do you think a Polje is?
Polge sounds like a noun, so I would expect
Well, these are all nouns.
Samite would be I guess it could be a noun. Okay. Polge. Dude, I have no idea.
Come on, take a guess.
That's way too high. I could not plausibly make a positive inference off of this.
It's Polje. What do you think a Polje is in terms of rocks in caves?
I don't know.
Oh, fine. An extensive depression. Hey, me too. Having a flat floor and steep walls, but no outflowing surface stream, and found in a region having karst topography, as in parts of Yugoslavia. You're telling me you couldn't have gotten that?
Under no circumstances. Oh my goodness.
All right. How about Nape?
Nape, other geographical formation. Possibly involving underground water.
Underground. Okay. A large mass of rocks thrust over other rocks.
Ouch.
So no. Even though this could be said for a lot of rocks in general, there's just rocks on top of rocks. If you heard the door open, that is because your boy Charlie is in the background. If I've not introduced him in the past, it's because he generally it's episode 2. He brought me something though.
Coconut. And I don't know if you like coffee or not.
Not really.
Do you like Red Bull or anything?
I'm
Because
good.
this is a Red Bull raspberry cream freeze.
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I have a straw?
Nah.
Thank you. Anyways, so that was a nice interruption. A coffee delivery, even though I got a Red Bull cream freeze with coconut in it because coconut is excellent. I'll drink this later or while we're talking. So
Yuggy. I'm
What
too
about a
scared to guess
buggy?
that one.
it's a vuggy, Vuggy.
Yeah, no,
Vuggy.
I'm too scared to answer that one. Let's go ahead and just go
Come
cut to the
on.
definition.
A small unfilled cavity in a lode or in rock. Bug.
Huh.
First known use of bug, 1818 in this definition. History and etymology for vug, modification of late corn fugo cave, akin to old corn vuga cave, Latin corn ogo, gugu sea cave, old Welsh gukov cave.
Isn't the English language something?
No, that's Welsh. I know. I get what you're saying.
Don't even start.
Samite. Come on, give me a guess for Samite.
Samite. It's obviously a type of rock, but beyond that, yeah, no, I don't know.
A rock composed of sandy particles. Sandstone. Samite is sandstone.
Gotcha.
I guess. Love words? No. Other words for Samite, Semitic. History and etymology for Samite, French from Sam and ite. Really? Anyways. Nope, not that one. We're not talking about the decapitated sea slugs yet.
That'll be a fun article.
But yeah, so this was actually interesting to me, but it makes a lot of sense. If you were just to be asked this question, I think anybody could give the proper answer. But a team of researchers has analyzed jargon in a set of over 21,000 scientific manuscripts, and they found that papers containing higher proportions of jargon in their titles and abstracts were cited less frequently by other researchers. And here's the problem with that. Citations for an article posted by a researcher is what is considered success. The more notoriety that your article gets, the more it's going to get published, and maybe you'll make a couple pennies off of it, even though you usually have to try and pay to get it published oftentimes.
More
Because
often than not.
bribery is a thing. Yeah. This reminds me of something that happened in my English class, reading, writing, inquiry. And I was writing an introduction, like, concept synthesis for advertising and journalism, because my major is journalism and I'm curious about how advertising is impacting it. Spoiler alert, it ain't good. So I wrote the synthesis, and I guess I used a lot of what he used a really big word to describe the words I was using.
Pedantic.
Uh, maybe it was a longer word than that.
Gotcha.
But I used words with a lot of syllables, more niche terms, and I guess like I thought I was just writing, but then he put it into perspective for me. You're writing to people. You're writing to the common folk, people that want to learn about your topic. If there's people trying to read your topic to learn about it, they don't know about it, and you should appeal to them by using common language. Like I used commercial corporatization to describe what the goal of these advertisement agencies have on newspapers, and not everybody knows what corporatization means, and not everybody knows what commercial means outside of what you see on television in between your cartoons. And that sounds demeaning, but it's just true. Not everybody knows every word, so you gotta write to appeal to people that don't know these words. Um, like Dr. Schulman here just nails it. It's alienating. Aeropostale, I don't care. Um, they used to estimate a researcher's productivity. But yeah,
Plus, you could also look at it as, oftentimes researchers, when they're looking through other articles to connect to their research, they aren't necessarily wanting to take the time to go through and define every, unique word, every uncommon word. They want to, go through and point.
Yeah.
Okay, it has stuff that supports my article, so I want to connect to it. They're not, it's almost a matter of efficiency as well, because, like you said, it's very hard to profit from these sorts of studies, hard to, get them published. So,
Oh, for sure.
Time is money in that context.
Absolutely. And like they just want to make a point. The shorter the article, in my opinion, the better, unless it is over like a multifaceted topic.
Yeah. Well,
but-
concision, having your writing be concise, which has
Concise.
been what I keep running into, is just, having the necessary information, displaying the knowledge, but you do so in such a long and roundabout way that people, just objectively
you're-
lose interest.
You're trying to explain it, but in doing so, you're making it less digestible, which is the opposite of what you're going for.
Right.
And so this article talks about how cave science is a particularly jargon heavy field. I'm having trouble talking today. And I can understand that. What cave words do you know other than stalagmite and stalactite?
Aquifer,
What does that mean?
underwater reservoir or underground reservoir of water, typically freshwater drinking water. It's what wells usually draw from.
All right. Yeah, I'm trying to think too.
I guess
Buggy.
the mouth of a cave. That's more common
Right.
common jargon, but
So they made an algorithm or a program using
gosh.
1,500 terms, including the four that we
Mhm.
didn't guess the definitions of, like I was hoping to. And then they wrote a computer program to calculate the proportion of jargon words in each manuscript's title and abstract. And they found that the papers with higher fractions of jargon received fewer citations. And like I said, citations are often viewed as a metric of academic success, and jargon has a negative impact on a paper. Any paper. It doesn't matter what you're writing. This is oral too. Like if you're giving an oral presentation over something and they don't know what you're talking about, they don't care. Even if it's something they want to be interested in. Like I am trying to get more into video and audio editing. Like I edited the podcast with this. It's a minimal thing because it's just audio and like I'm recording my screen. But still, I look up videos, I'm trying to learn more about it. And there's a lot of words that I don't know, and it kind of turns me off of it, but I want to learn, but it's just not as digestible as it could be. And that's the problem with yeah, that's the problem. But if you go in the opposite direction with jargon,
right, you don't want
you can make it better. It's more beneficial, according to this. Other researchers have found, however, that using less common words, a form of jargon, can be beneficial. So it's like if you were to say, like, I think a problem, and this isn't necessarily jargon, but I think a big problem that a lot of researchers run into is they feel like they can't use contractions. I don't know. Is that the word? Yeah, that's the word.
contractions like do not, don't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I don't know why I couldn't think of that.
I was curious if that
My
was what it
brain
meant.
was like, yeah,
Yeah.
but like they feel like they have to, and even Microsoft Word tells you that you should in like a proper context. Um, I could pull up something I'm writing, but I don't want to prove my
Mhm.
point. But like it asks you to break the contraction, write it out in the full way. It's it makes it more concise though. You know, people are used to contractions. Like down in the south where y'all getting the y'all isn't
Oh boy.
y'all ain't
Yep.
is not a contraction. It's not a word. Why do people use it? It's jargon. But
Mhm.
that's the kind of jargon you don't want. But if you use simpler words, uh, it can help.
Or even what what they're suggesting here, less common words. You don't want to use specialized jargon because as we've gone over briefly, no one is able to identify a specialized jargon if they're not a specialist in that field. It's simply you don't know enough, you don't have enough of an education in that particular area to draw an inference there, as I couldn't with the first four words. But using less common words, so like when I referred to pedantic earlier as overly educated or showy word choice when you're writing a paper, or diction, which is basically just your word choice, taking more advanced terms that are not specialized but also aren't just the commonplace terminology, can go very far in just making your papers better and making yourself seem more professionalized, more aware and intelligent about what you're doing.
Yet another line that nails it on the head. Clear communication should always be a goal in science. We're
Mm-hmm.
not publishing to show off our vocabulary. We're publishing for the sake of information, or we should be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the reason I'm more passionate about this is because I'm a writer. I love to write. I want to do journalism, and I don't think anybody would read my articles if I used multisyllabic words. Is that a word? Syllabic?
I don't think so.
We're gonna look it up.
Yeah.
Um,
Syllabic, you mean? Look it up.
Perhaps. I have Norton Safe Search because I'm awesome. Syllabic syllabic definition.
That's not it.
Syllabicated. Dividing. Nope. I'm an idiot. Oh. It's official. But if I just used really long, like niche words in over whatever I'm talking about in my article, I don't think anybody would want to read that. I wouldn't want to
Mhm.
read that. I don't want to write that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the problem is people who become more informed, and this isn't to say that people are like preppy when they go into science, but people who are more informed oftentimes feel as though they have trouble breaking the habit of talking with big words because they spent like however many years of school learning those big words and they want to use that education for something. So like for example, there was my first semester chemistry teacher in my sophomore year of high school had this issue where he was so smart he couldn't grasp why we didn't get something. Because to him, it's child's play. But to me, I'm a sophomore who just knows about like the weather cycle ish, maybe. But yeah, so that's a problem with higher educated people. Not all of them, but many that are so educated that they are like it's like a prodigy. And like oftentimes with prodigies you see these stories like who's the uh who's the chess master? You know, the guy.
I don't keep up with.
Like he's the chess grandmaster, or he was.
I've heard of that.
Chess
But
grandmaster. I'm thinking of Magnus Carlsen. Yes, okay. Magnus Carlsen, I guess I should address this since it just defaults. There's gonna be a supermoon on the 26th. Have fun with that. Anyways, Magnus Carlsen, he's incredibly intelligent, obviously. He can walk up and down rows. I saw an article on 60 Minutes about him. Not an article so much as a story, but
right.
he can walk up and down rows, play multiple chess games at the same time against other people on the timer. This guy's insane. Um, he's not very good at communication. his father, his relationship with his father is a little compromised at times because his father travels the world with him, takes him places, works with him. But Magnus, being at a prodigy level, his understanding is so much deeper than the layman's, and oftentimes it can be difficult to communicate with people who don't understand something as well as you do because you don't understand why they don't understand. It's like to him, obviously you want to move the rook to K5 or whatever, but to us we're like, I just want to move my horsey, and that's where the miscommunication gap comes in.
Mm-hmm. Kind of tying into this, what I'm studying I'm studying to become a civil lawyer, and one of the biggest points made is throughout law school you're going to learn all sorts of Latin terms, Latin terminology. Stare decisis being the most commonly known one, that means to stand by the precedent. But something that's been pointed out to me by a number of professors is just you don't want to use those when you're actually in the heat of a court case, arguing in front of a jury. And the problem is because while you'll know what you're saying, and the opposing lawyer will know what you're saying, you're not trying to convince the opposing lawyer of your argument. You're trying to convince the jury. You're trying to establish a rapport with the jury in order to get them to sympathize with your client with your side, and just identify more with you and your side. And if you're using all sorts of terminology, and especially Latin that they don't understand, and
Like rapport.
Rep. That's fair. A conversation. You're trying to make the discussion more conversational, even though they obviously cannot talk back.
It's not a jury of your peers as a lawyer.
Right.
It's a jury of the defendant's peers.
And odds are, even in civil court, say it's a popular business you're defending, the people that are part of the jury aren't going to be well versed in Latin legal terminology. So your best is just remembering to be educated in your field, but also human to a degree.
What are we at? 32 minutes in. Jeez, man.
Nice.
We have a few more things I wanted to cover. Let's take a break from the articles and watch a video. Charlie, the guy who delivered me the coffee, actually found this one for me, and maybe you've all seen it before. Trimming trees by Powerline with helicopter. So it's got, you can see the power lines. This helicopter has a row of saw blades in a chainsaw-like formation, and it's just cutting down these trees. And I wonder, like, there's no real context to this. Obviously, it's an effective method. Watch those branches fall. But hold on. There's a person up there.
You're kidding.
There's a person up there. Do you see him?
No, I don't see them.
No, like in this little thing.
Oh, I see that a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
No,
a
thanks.
person. Imagine being the guy. Yeah, you're gonna drive the chainsaw. But this is insane to me because imagine you're flying a helicopter, and my understanding is that helicopters are a lot more finicky than most aircraft.
Yeah, way more than people, the movies would have you believe.
Right. So, like, the amount of... This has to be a really good pilot, or everybody's losing internet, and that guy's dead, because that's all metal, and that is all electronics, going from the cable all the way up to the helicopter. So, like, geez, dude, that's insane.
Plus, I can't help but wonder how even the local government got the permit to do this, considering, one poor hiker, can you imagine you're taking your family through a trail in the woods, and you look up and there's that flying towards you.
Who said it was the government? What if it's just some guy?
Well, that's even more problematic.
It's like, hey, yo, these trees need trimmed. Chainsaw helicopter.
We're not wasting
Let's
time
go.
here. Oh my goodness.
Let's go. And then you just look up and it's like, damn it, Greg's out there again. Honey, Greg has the chainsaw helicopter. Grab my rifle.
We're shooting this guy down this time.
That boy ain't right, I tell you what. So yeah, I really wanted to talk about that. Like, as soon as Charlie showed it to me, I was like, podcast. That's going on the podcast. Absolutely, that's going on the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
But, okay. We're at 35 minutes. I think we're gonna. No, we can't skip the sea slug one because
It's up on our main
it's on
thing.
the thumbnail and it's on this right now.
So
So,
we can address that briefly and then
but
drop in.
then we have an article we really want to
Oh, yeah.
dive into. So let's talk about. Ooh,
Let's not do that.
ooh, ooh, ooh. There we go.
There we go.
Meet the sea slugs that chop off their heads and grow new bodies. Their severed heads get around just fine until they regenerate perfectly functioning, parasite-free new bodies, scientists say. So a sea slug, in essence, is just a head. That's the conclusion I immediately draw from this. It doesn't need its body. If anything, that's just an opportunity for more parasites. Why doesn't it just live like that? It's getting around as fast as it would otherwise.
That's largely because parasites would then infect the smaller body, and that would magnify
Probably.
the issue. But yeah,
Sea slug's head moved around 3 days after the invertebrate decapitated itself. The body still responds. It's still alive. It has no brain, but the parasite's in there. I assume that's what it means by alive. Like, look at it. Oh, it's like when you poke a frog and it's like you.
I assume
And
that
its
has something to
legs
do with the
shake.
nervous system,
Right.
which is probably a delayed nervous system. Otherwise, that would be
Yeah.
excruciatingly painful for the creature.
A few years ago, Sayaka Mito, a PhD candidate at Nara Women's University in Japan, was pursuing her lab's vast collection of sea slugs when she stumbled upon a gruesome sight. One of the lab's captive-raised sea slugs, an Alicia marginata, had somehow been decapitated. Imagine being her. Imagine being her.
Oh my goodness.
Being like, all right, I'm going to work with the sea slugs. I'm going to look at stuff and I'm going to learn because I'm a researcher, a PhD candidate. Oh my God, its head is chopped off. It wasn't me. It wasn't me.
Oh, well, you know, your first instinct is, okay, what kind of crazy person snuck in here to do that? I mean,
And then she looked in there and she's like, oh, false alarm. It's still eating. Where's that food going? Where's the food going, CJ?
I don't even want to know. I don't want to know how they do that. I can only presume that the organs are all either in their heads or over the 3-day period regenerate within the head before proceeding to the rest of the body.
Miss Mito might, sorry if you're watching this, but you're not. Miss Mito also saw signs that the sea slug's wound was self-inflicted. What signs?
It would probably be.
It was if the sea slug has dissolved the tissue around its neck and ripped off its own head. What signs? Oh, this acidic sea slug dissolved its head off. That's obvious when you just look at it.
Well, it's probably the signs of chemical interaction mixed with the fact that it was physically torn, which if it had been through other parties, it would either have been bitten or human intervention. It would have been far more artificial, because I don't know about anyone else, but if I'm a delinquent and I'm thinking I want to chop off a sea slug's head for whatever odd reason, I'm just going to bring a sharp object. I'm not bringing chemicals and then physically pull. I mean. Then again, I don't know what delinquents are going to think, so whatever. Anyway.
She added that she expected the slug would die quickly without a heart and other important organs like the stomach for the algae it was eating, but okay. It regrew its entire body within 3 weeks. Imagine if, like, you got cancer. Like, you got lung cancer. So you chop your head off. You go get the guillotine down the hall, and you just chop your own head off, and then you regrow your body. Fresh lungs, no cancer anymore.
Oh my goodness.
This prompted Miss Mito and her colleagues to conduct a series of experiments aimed at figuring out how and why some sea slugs guillotine themselves. Is that a verb? To guillotine?
Yeah, it would be.
Okay. The results of their experiments, published Monday in Current Biology, provide evidence that Alicia marginata and a closely related species, Alicia atroviridis, purposefully decapitate themselves in order to facilitate the growth of a new body. That's wild to me. I mean, obviously it makes sense. You see like salamanders severing their tails and then running away and then growing a new one.
Same with like certain species of gecko.
Right. The head wounds the sea slug created during autonomy took only 1 day to heal, so it just cauterized itself immediately. For most sea slugs, the regeneration process took less than 3 weeks. We've known for a long time that sea slugs have regenerative capabilities, but this really goes beyond what we had thought, says Terry Goslinger. Yeah. I wouldn't hedge my bet on them decapitating themselves to start. You know, maybe I'll ante up once I see more evidence, but I'm not doubling down from the get-go.
No. Uh-uh.
The ability is known as kleptoplasty. Um,
All right, and then with the end
it's
of our
just to
time,
avoid predation, but the researchers found evidence that it can also be used to expel internal parasites. So that's the gist of it. I just thought that was really interesting. So, I mean, just look at this guy go. It's kind of like the handstanding bunnies, but a little more demented. Okay, what are we at? We're at 40 minutes. We can push this one a little bit longer if you just want to take a look at this last article.
all right.
Could could Mario Kart teach us how to reduce world poverty and improve sustainability?
This one has an interesting take. I can summarize it if you want.
Go ahead.
So basically, the entire crux of the article has little to do about anything with racetracks, racing, or characters, and more to do with what position you are in the race, from last to first, and the fact that even if you fall off the track, there are things put in place to put you back on. That connects to the idea that, if you're in first place, you're getting less high quality items than the person in last, like the person in last, invincibility, the golden mushroom, and the bullet, whereas the person up front gets basically green shells and bananas.
Mm-hmm.
And talking about how we can use that to adjust our own economic system to be more equitable and give the people at the lower levels the larger benefits, and then the people up at the top. My immediate problem with that, and this might just be because I'm reading too much into the Mario Kart element of the discussion, but I don't know about anyone else who's played Mario Kart, but I've been able to do a lot of damage from first place with those smaller items.
Not just dealing a lot of damage, you've been able to avoid a lot of damage. Just holding those green shells and banana peels behind you, you're untouchable if you play it right, except for the blue shell. And the blue shell is basically just antitrust.
Yeah.
Anyways,
but
that's a funny analogy, because that implies that if you go jump off a cliff into poverty, Lakitu is gonna pull you back up. And I don't think, if our government's Lakitu, he left his cloud a while ago.
Yeah. My biggest issue with this, I think, though, at the end of the day, is when you're in last place and you get those power ups, what do? You immediately shoot up to 4th or 5th, which means everyone in 5th to 10th not only isn't getting the same benefits, but now they're being put behind you because you were lower than them, and now you've been given resources that they were not granted access to.
The problem with equity and equality, and obviously they're admirable goals, and if we found a sustainable way to have them, it would be great. The problem is pushing somebody up is always going to push somebody down. Unfortunately, you have to step on somebody's head to get yourself up to the next rung of the ladder every so often. It's not ideal, but it's just how it seems to be.
And then for the frequent, just bring down the people up on top, up in front, who can afford it, to lose a few places, so to speak. Well, like I said, I was able to do a lot of damage and prevent a lot of damage to myself with those smaller resources. So that doesn't guarantee you're going to be able to bring down the people in the first 5 spots of society, but it does guarantee that the people in this case, in the real world example, in the middle class, especially lower middle, which is a very tenuous position to hold, especially during this pandemic, they're going to get the snot kicked out of them because of the fact that they can't, they don't have the access to the same resources. And yeah,
exactly. And the article here acknowledges that it's really hard to do, like the suggestion that governments could set up programs so a hydropower company would pay farmers to adopt agricultural practice to prevent erosion, so the company can build a dam to provide electricity. It's a complicated transaction that worked under very specific circumstances. But yeah, so the PEZ systems they want to have in place. Do you think they have pest dispensers?
That hurt. I admire the pun, but that hurt.
Sorry.
But again, and I'm glad that the article did address that, because that takes it into the idea of it's entirely contextual. There's no one blanket solution program we're going to be able to push out, that's going to resolve everything. Even FDR, I know this is coming up a lot in politics nowadays, but even FDR's New Deal wasn't a blanket statement for the entire U.S. that, resolved everything all at once. There was a series of highly focused and contextualized efforts, many of which were even just plainly struck down by the judiciary or the legislature, because they were seen as either too liberal, too conservative, etc. Just a myriad of issues. Larger point being just there's no like new deal that's going to rectify our economy, the equality and the equity in our system, the coronavirus, etc. It's taking what we have and solving it one step at a time rather than expecting it to take only one step.
Right, and like the last paragraph says, you got to figure out what that golden mushroom is.
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody needs. Some people might need the bullet bill. Some people might need the power star. Some people might need the golden mushroom. It's hard to know. And how do you give someone an invincibility star and try to ensure that they don't knock somebody else off the track?
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea. It's a good. I like the analogy.
Mm-hmm.
It's entertaining. That's why I wanted to talk about it. But the article just says, "Hey, this would be cool. This is kind of how it would work, but
Mm-hmm.
figure it out." It's like, you and that. Okay, last comment. That goes back to journalism again. Goes into a problem that a lot of people have with journalists. We just talk about the problem. We don't suggest solutions.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well, then the next biggest problem is that people say, well, the solution is have the government figure it out. The government can, resolve that.
yeah, are they gonna?
Yeah, A, are they gonna? And B, America's a democracy, which means the people are the ones meant to hold the power. The moment you allow the government to start making decisions without consulting representatives, without, focusing on the people and, their individual well-being, you're going to lose a lot of power in said democracy.
Right. Well, that's all the articles I had.
Yep.
I think that was an excellent episode.
I agree.
Good discussions, couple laughs, kind of what we're going for with this. We're still testing the waters. It's only episode 2, but we're getting a feel for it. And if you like what you see so far, make sure to stick around. Hit the subscribe button. Come back. We're going to start uploading on Wednesdays because it is, after all, a midweek podcast. But yeah, subscribe, hit the like button. What was your favorite article? What do you think about everything? What do you think about the Mario Kart solution we've got going on here? And yeah, we hope to see you next week. Anything to send them off with, DJ?
Stay safe, have fun, and above all, keep focused on your goals.
And again, another lame sentence.
You're welcome.
All right, see you guys.